morning, everybody. I would like to welcome you all to this lecture this morning, in particular our UC chair, Dr. Daniel Chair, and also our colleagues in the university, and also our guests from outside, and also a very interesting and large audience of students, which are the main target of this lecture. As it was mentioned, we are going to have now a distinguished lecture by one of our honoris causa degree recipients that will be awarded the degree later in this week. That is a well-renowned material scientist, as was presented also. So I will briefly introduce his biography, which is very extensive biography, but I just highlight a few points before we have the presentation of the lecture. Professor Arden Lee Beeman Jr. Will be the recipient of our degree of honoris causa in the area of the science. And Professor Beeman has made outstanding contributions in his many important leadership roles in industry, academia, and government agencies. He is a member of the National Academy of Engineering in the United States, and he conducted materials research in support of advanced engineering conversion technologies, and successively served as professor of nuclear materials at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He was member of the USSR bilateral exchange program in MHD, and head of the MIT Fusion Technology program. Of his prominent leadership roles in US government agencies, three stand out prominently. He was a Deputy Under Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, Director of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and Director of the National Science Foundation. Under his directorship, the National Science Foundation opened its office in Beijing, China, showing his initiative in promoting science and technology collaboration between China and the US. I think that Professor Beeman has a very prominent CV, but in our honoris causa degrees, we praise a lot the connections between China and other countries, and our university, also as leading university in Macau, praise this connection that Professor Beeman has established by opening his office in Beijing for the National Science Foundation. Professor Beeman is going to talk about change masters for the 21st century, which I think is a very important topic, like I told you before, and I hope that you enjoy his presentation, because he's basically talking about the future, and the future is yours. So in concluding, I'd like just to ask you to present a very big and warm round of applause to Professor Beeman.
Ni hao. Your Excellencies, the Council, Vice Rectors, distinguished faculty, hardworking students, it's a great honor and a pleasure to be here at Macau and the University of Macau. I look upon Macau as a city where every day is a holiday. But I'm sure that's not the case here at the university. All my expectations in coming to Macau have been exceeded, and I expect the same will be true for the university as well. I'm familiar with your history and the progress you've made under the leadership of Rector Professor Zhao. And I'm also looking forward to seeing part of your new campus, which will be, I think, an extraordinary advance forward for the university, and will lift you even to higher levels of distinction over time. And you, the students who are graduating from this university, will be able to look back with great pride and what you accomplished while you were here, and also you'll be able to observe over time how important this university will become. There are several similarities between Purdue University and the University of Macau. We have common objectives. We're both dedicated to educating the whole person for leadership, both nationally and internationally. We both have honors colleges to promote academic excellence. We both encourage interdisciplinary education and research. And we both seek a global perspective and see ourselves as international universities. I would like to, I have to keep track of my slides. I would like to begin my lecture by talking about changes I've observed in higher education at Purdue University, but also throughout the United States and other parts of the world. I think these changes are really quite important, and in fact, in some instances, they're paradigm breaking. When I returned to Purdue University after 10 years in Washington, much had changed, both with the faculty and the students. Students were much more agile in computer learning and could jump ahead of the professor through self-learning with the aid of smartphones, iPads, laptop computers, and the internet. There were many more undergraduate students involved in research and engineering projects, and many of them were full participants and even co-authored journal publications. Also, freshmen were coming to Purdue with a much better developed worldview and had already established international networks through LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Many had international experiences while in high school, and some were well along in developing a second language. What I was observing was a dramatic change in education stimulated by advances in communication and information technologies that enable self-paced learning anywhere, anytime, and with anybody. There had been a shift from instructor-centric teaching to student-centric learning. Now that indeed is a major development over about a decade and is still evolving. The classroom was becoming more like a Socratic symposium. What I'm saying there is that the time in the classroom was being spent in discussing, probing, validating, consensus building, collective thinking, and discovery. Time outside of the classroom was being devoted to addressing the instructor's assignment through inquiry-based networking, or reviewing the instructor's lectures notes, or the world's knowledge base on the internet. This not only extended the learning process beyond the classroom throughout the week, but it also allowed students to conduct an ongoing comparative self-analysis between what they knew, what they wished to know, and what they needed to know. These new modalities of education have also resulted in an increase in graduation rates by tailoring courses to the interests and learning needs of the students, rather than the teaching interests of the instructors. Now that too is a change. During my 10-year hiatus, Purdue had also substantially changed in other ways. Faculty size had increased, and many of the new faculty were younger, reducing the average faculty age. That generated a lot more energy on campus. Furthermore, most of the new faculty had achieved their graduate training through interdisciplinary research. They were much better able to solve, model, and simulate highly complex problems at the systemic level. And this allowed them to also integrate insights from other disciplines through interdisciplinary research. I conducted in the year 2000 a survey of our senior faculty at Purdue, and I asked them what would most help them in their research. Interdisciplinary research was ranked relatively low among 12 other alternative answers. But however, that attitude no longer prevails. Purdue University today has 100 interdisciplinary research centers and a $500 million Discovery Park with world-class interdisciplinary research facilities for such fields as nanotechnology, biotechnology, healthcare, renewable energy, environmental sustainability, discovery and learning, and innovation and entrepreneurship. During my tenure at the National Science Foundation, I visited about 35 major U.S. research universities, and I talked with winners of prestigious NSF awards for young faculty career development. When I asked the faculty what they were heading, where they were heading in their academic careers, many of them responded that they wanted to conduct research on pressing global issues. In that regard, many world leaders look to technology to find solutions to global issues. However, I also observe that there are broadening views about the social impacts of new technologies. Clearly, emphasis on increasing work efficiency, addressing national needs, and improving quality of life through technology are important. However, there's a growing recognition that new technologies can change social economic patterns, and some of these changes may not be for the better. Therefore, including the social and behavioral sciences in conducting international collaborative research on global issues is essential. Government agencies providing aid to impoverished developing nations are beginning to get it. That it is far more important to build the education and research base to enable these countries to solve their own problems than just merely transferring technologies without considering the needs for social economic adaptation. Differing insights and attitudes and how best to bring about social economic change is important for today's university students to understand. For example, American students in my Global Issues seminar course discovered in addressing complex issues that often their international team members did not agree with their solutions. This opened up their thinking about different insights and problem-solving approaches from other cultures. They cited this realization as one of the best educational outcomes of the course. I expect that all my observations at Purdue University also pertain here at the University of Macau and also to most other world-leading universities. Now let us examine today's environment for research at public universities. The world is shrinking figuratively due to advances in communications and information technologies. A growing number of world's leading universities are positioning themselves to be international universities. This is influenced by their growing numbers of international students, foreign board faculty members, student abroad programs, and international collaborative research opportunities. Virtual networking among researchers and the development of virtually networked major research facilities, the expanded use of open exchanges of data and courseware, and the harmonization of curricula and degree programs now facilitate increased global collaborations among universities around the world. And I congratulate the university for achieving accreditation in engineering and computer science, which again will facilitate international collaboration. An emerging opportunity for global collaborations is the tackling of grand challenge global issues. These issues are of such complexity and scope that no single university or even a single nation can tackle them. So what are they? Well, they abound in the world today, and a few examples include sustainable energy, scarce commodities, global warming, disruptive events, world hunger and poverty, pandemics, loss of biodiversity, invasive species, and failed states. And this is only a partial list, there are many more. The degree of interconnectedness among national economies is greater today than ever before. Today, when one nation gets hay fever, other nations sneeze. The global community now shares a common interest in finding solutions, or at least agreeing on joint mitigation and adaptation strategies for these types of problems. New technologies are often cited as a way out of these problems. However, as I have stressed earlier, technical approaches are not enough. They have to be compatible with a wide range of social, political, historical, and economic contexts. Scientists and engineers who advocate a normative approach to solving these broad-scale problems without taking contextual factors into account can do a disservice to their disciplines. Each of these global issues is highly complex. However, the extent of the complexity is compounded by the interrelationship among these issues. For example, the achievement of sustainable energy is linked to assuring a sustainable environment and preserving a sustainable economy. Linkages between food security and a number of other issues such as water, soil, energy are all interconnected, and they complicate the expanding food production for a burgeoning world population. For example, agricultural production and processing are energy intensive and consume 70% of society's use of the world's available fresh water. These are called nasty or wicked problems because of the large number of coupled variables. For such complex coupled systems, long-range predictions are unlikely. Only projections of limited time steps are reasonable. Understanding these couplings among these very complex issues is very important for anyone who wants to be a change master in the 21st century. How then do these developments shape the future for research at public universities? I believe that there are 6 major drivers involved. Growth in interdisciplinary research to tackle complex problems at the systemic level. Greater academic internationalization. Increased attention to technologies that can shape global cooperation. Enhancements of virtual networks to conduct research. Expanding capacity of cyber infrastructure. And more multinational partnerships. First, let's examine developments in interdisciplinary research. The satisfaction that comes from solving a complex problem at the systemic level is usually the prime driver for interdisciplinary research. As stressed earlier, addressing complex global issues requires the interdisciplinary contributions of natural scientists, engineers, social scientists, and economists in addressing the interconnected technical, social, and economic factors involved in evaluating alternative approaches to a solution to these problems. Furthermore, if no one person can be expected to find the solution to a complex global problem, it follows that no one person can identify the problem to be addressed by an interdisciplinary team. Teamwork in posing the problem is paramount to building a combined team insight, expertise, and synergy needed to analyze possible alternative solutions. The importance of open environments for the free exchange of ideas and insights has been recognized in recent years by designing open gathering spaces for discussion and interchange, and also non-ownership laboratory spaces for cross-campus collaborative research. However, creating a successful interdisciplinary work environment may require the expertise of a social scientist to establish equitable conflict resolution procedures for the sharing of research credits, office and laboratory space, and also instrumentation. Sustainability is often a stumbling block for interdisciplinary research centers at public universities. National agencies that provide research grants generally have a seeding mission, not a long-term sustaining mission. These grant agencies generally expect that if the research center is intended to have a long lifetime, that sustainability will be planned before the initiation of the grant. Intellectual sustainability is also a critical factor. Prominent faculty members often commit to a center during the startup stage to help assure its success, but then revert to their own interests after startup. Building intellectual sustainability through collaborations with single investigators, small groups, and cluster hires can help build excellence over time. Now let's examine university globalization. As universities aspire to become international universities, the question, what constitutes a strategic global initiative, arises. The American Council on Education suggests the following. Strategic initiatives generally represent special long-term relationships that can have lasting impact over time. Such initiatives can be found at all levels of a university, from individual collaborations to joint research institutes, to university-wide involvements in joint study abroad programs, exchanges, and education agreements, and to the administration of campuses abroad. These programs should benefit all parties. Namely, they should transcend international borders, meet high ethical standards in resource sharing, and recognize irreducible prerequisites that are consistent with founding principles and legal constraints of a public university. They should strike a balance between idealism and pragmatism and be consistent with other obligations. Finally, they should be sustainable from the outset if they are intended to be long-term special relationships. These criteria are challenging for public universities, which must live within constrained budgets and pay attention to their public obligations. However, addressing global issues which can have national, regional, and local consequences in a highly interconnected world cannot be done in a confined, narrowly focused academic environment. This is where balancing pragmatism with idealism comes in. It is also where autonomy to engage internationally is essential. There are a number of emergent technologies that can have major impacts in conserving scarce resources, mitigating changes in Earth systems, building economies, and enhancing quality of life by overcoming hunger, poverty, malnutrition, and disease. As director of the National Science Foundation, I often ask visiting science ministers from other countries about their priorities. Before the onset of the recession, they responded, biotechnology, nanotechnology, and information technology. The technological holy trinity, if you will. When the recession was in full sway, however, they responded, innovation and entrepreneurship. They were interested in creating new jobs. For both developing and emerging economies, there are other technologies that are essential to meeting national needs. These are the technologies where internal capacity building is needed through international partnerships. I've listed some of these on the slide as examples of where high potential shared benefits can result from global collaborations. I believe that such collaborative global agendas will shape the future of research in public universities. Such collaborations will benefit from networked science and technological research, which is our next topic. There's continuing pressure from research universities to build high-end research instrumentation to advance science and technology. The U.S. National Science Foundation, for example, has long been under pressure to increase its funding cap on major research instrumentation. Furthermore, pressures to build major national and international research facilities costing in the billions of U.S. dollars are likewise increasing around the world. The redundancy in some of these planned facilities raises the question, should we not be thinking of building more facilities of a kind? I mean, more kinds of facilities rather than more facilities of a kind. Such facilities also contribute to the burgeoning volume of data and information flows that today challenge our networks, our data storage facilities, and the ability to adequately curate and evaluate data. It's a critical evaluation of data that you should be learning while you're at this university. Therefore, investment in sophisticated cyber infrastructure is also needed to serve these needs. Virtual networks and high-performance computing show promise of revolutionizing science and engineering by helping to advance humanity's understanding of such grand challenge problems. However, such problems as for example, how does a protein structure influence gene expression? What are the origins of dark energy and dark matter? How do exploding stars produce the elements of the periodic table? What are the effects of climate change on the Earth's ecosystems? What is the nature of catalytic conversion at the atomic level? How does a human brain transfer and store information at the scale of neurons? How can society become more resilient in responding to major natural disasters? And how does energy intensify and dissipate in cyclonic storms? One of the goals guiding NSF's investment in high-performance computing from 2006 onward was to take a multi-track approach to procuring computers ranging from 1 teraflop, which is 1 trillion floating point operations per second, to 1 or more petaflops, which is a quadrillion floating point operations per second. We're now talking about astronomical units. The architectures of these high-end computers and the software, algorithms, and human interfaces that complement them are intended to make possible the analysis, visualization, modeling, simulation, data storage, and synthesis required to solve grand challenge problems such as those mentioned. Access to large-scale cloud computing by U.S. scientists and engineers was also arranged through joint agreements between NSF and private sector providers. However, there are lingering problems in assuring information and security of these data, and also providing open data sharing. As a contribution to the growing interest in cloud computing, Purdue University developed a resource called WISPy, which allows researchers to package self-contained programs or virtual machines to be run remotely on a specifically configured cluster computer. Up to 128 virtual machines can be run concurrently on a WISPy cluster with a variety of computing environments. These are the kind of topics that your rector, Professor Zhao, worked on when he was at NSF. Perhaps the innovation Purdue is most proud of in supporting virtual communities is called HubZero, which has been characterized as a Swiss Army knife for hub development. This is a web-based collaborative environment with such features as how-to videos, interactive simulation tools, online presentations, mechanisms for upgrading new resources, a tool development area, and capabilities for rating, citations, and content tagging. It's essentially a sharing, learning, exploring, discovering, and virtual people connecting environment. Computer-enabled data storage, archiving, safeguarding, and information accessing has brought university libraries closer to scientists as full partners in their discovery and publication endeavors. Supercomputers and object-based data storage systems are now common tools for university libraries. For example, many new light archives have been established to circulate e-publications and digitized archives broadly, as compared with dark archives where they may never see the light of day. Most of the developments outlined here for research also benefit education by enabling open courseware and distance education. Computer and networking tools are now commonly deployed in learning laboratories at most leading universities. Developing countries are paying attention to such tools as a means of decreasing their cost of education. These developments for advancing pedagogy, education outcomes, and cost effectiveness will be of growing interest to the world's public universities. In summary, it's not just the building of a modern cyber infrastructure, but putting it to work. That's important. Such potential outcome comes from a properly designed cyber infrastructure are first, solving complex problems through computation, modeling, and simulation. Next, improving predictive capabilities through multiple regression analysis and neural fuzzy sets. Next, converting data into information and information into knowledge. Uncovering new scientific concepts through data mining and synthesis. Many of the new planets, exoplanets, are now discovered by data synthesis rather than by telescopes. Improving the cost-effectiveness and scope of cyber learning and education on a global scale, as I mentioned earlier. And finally, developing improved data standards, correlations, functional relationships, and statistical evaluations that would enable data regeneration to be done at a lower cost than data storage, which is overcoming all capacity. Finally, let's look at the imperatives for a multi-university partnership. Partnerships among U.S. universities are now a well-accepted means for addressing national research agendas. Such agendas include building and operating national agency-funded major research centers to address high-priority national needs, for building major user facilities at national laboratories, and developing high-synergy research centers at universities to move the frontiers of science forward. Increasingly, multi-university partnerships with international counterparts are being encouraged by research funding agencies around the world. Therefore, I believe that such partnerships will increase in the future. Another stimulus is the growing need for intermediate scale research instrumentation at universities, costing over $100 million US for cutting edge science and engineering research. These instruments are generally beyond the funding reach of a single public university. Most research funding agencies with limited budgets for instruments of this scale encourage multi-university partnerships. International policy research is another opportunity for multi-university collaboration. Such studies could inform not only national policy-making bodies, but also international policy forums, such as the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and United Nations organizations such as the Food and Agriculture Organization, the International Atomic Energy Agency, UNESCO, World Health Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, and others. The International Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, convenes scientists from around the world to continually review spatially and temporally resolved climate models for open dissemination. This illustrates one conduit for providing scientific input to the world's policy and decision makers. Other such international scientific panels for global issues will very likely emerge in the future. However, I believe it is imperative that such panels adopt an honest broker approach. By means of this approach, they would pose alternatives to addressing a pressing global issue and evaluate each alternative by rigorous research and analysis to uncover their positive and negative consequences. It is critical for public consumption to disclose the unknowns and uncertainties of these analyses and projections. An advocacy approach runs the risk of discrediting science by overstating the current understanding of complex problems. This occurred in the case of ClimateGate. While very few scientists in the world would deny that the Earth's climate is warming, they continue to debate the relative impacts of natural and human forcing. The ability to capitalize on synergies and flexibilities from multiple university partnerships by capitalizing on their financial, intellectual, and geographic leveraging potential makes them well worth the effort. Continuing advancements in information and communication technologies will facilitate realizing the full potential of these leveraging opportunities. A beneficiary of these partnerships will be you, the students, the future leaders, and the change masters that public universities around the world will be graduating. So what else might one expect as the future unfolds? One potential is the increasing capability to anticipate and manage change. The rate of new scientific knowledge generation is accelerating with an estimated doubling period of 5 years today, which will only shorten in the future if this accelerating trend continues. Many university graduates will be pursuing jobs in the near future that have not yet been defined in companies that have not yet been established. Change will be part of their life, and the ability to anticipate change, take calculated risks, learn from failures, and turn adversity into opportunities will be the attributes of a change master for the 21st century. Because of such accelerating change, university graduates will lose much of the value of contemporary knowledge shortly after they graduate. How effectively they assimilate new knowledge will be key to their future success as change masters. The advent of smartphones, cloud computing, web browsers, application stores, and a wide variety of electronic computer-enabled devices will make possible continuous inquiry-based learning by unparalleled access to the world's knowledge base. For change masters working in the private sector, a constant challenge will be to keep ahead of the competition by rapidly converting new ideas and hypotheses into valuable innovations, and to convert these innovations rapidly into scalable prototypes of new products, processes, and services for the marketplace. Fast computer-enabled prototyping and three-dimensional printing are examples of paradigm-breaking technologies that will be revolutionary in this respect. One can expect advances in the power of human cognition as a result of new discoveries. For example, the evolution of a semantic web, the dream of Tim Berners-Lee, to make available machine-readable metadata that can facilitate machines talking to machines, will be advanced by new scientific understandings of how the human brain stores and transfers data, which is now within the reach of petascale computing. Such advances should enhance the prospects of developing natural bridges between human brains and AI-enabled smart machines that will enable greater synergies between what the human brain can do best and what the computer can do best. These advances could impart to smart systems greater anticipatory control and faster response times. They could also enhance human perceptions of complexity. The Blue Ribbon Advisory Panel of the National Science Foundation, in their report, Revolutionizing Science and Engineering Through Cyber Infrastructure, has expressed this vision. A new age has dawned in scientific and engineering research, pushed by continuing progress in computing, information, and communication technologies, and pulled by the expanding complexity, scope, and scale of today's challenges. The emerging vision is to use cyber infrastructure to build more ubiquitous, comprehensive environments that can serve individuals, teams, and organizations in ways that revolutionize what they do, how they do it, and who participates. This paints a bright future for both public universities and change masters for finding solutions to the daunting global challenges facing the world today. It also projects a future in which the conduct of research itself could change to be more participative and virtual. With such capabilities, researchers would be better served in anticipating information needs, sorting and synthesizing data, and converting it to new knowledge faster than we can now imagine. It might also provide better vision into the nebular regions beyond the scientific frontiers. One might then be able to better predict where the next sailing into the unknown will most likely succeed in moving the frontier forward. In concluding these remarks, I would like to end on an optimistic note. I've discovered that the students that take my course on global policy issues are not daunted by the seriousness and complexity of global policy issues. I find them eager to fill the role of change master for the 21st century, no matter what career path they change. They want to be part of the solutions of these problems. They have learned that there are viable alternative solutions to each of these issues. Furthermore, they have learned that each alternative must be adapted to a social economic context in order to be accepted by society. These adaptations are more political than technical and define the respective roles of the scientist and the policymaker. Therefore, closing the communication gap between policymakers, lawmakers, and the scientists is absolutely essential. However, today's university graduates are inheriting not only the problems, but also the opportunities for the 21st century. Throughout the world, the mean level of affluence in education is rising. Leaders in impoverished developing countries are well aware that economic development depends on new technologies and new education capacities needed to develop and adapt to them. They have learned that international development and external dependency do not go well together. I expect the development of new technologies to continue to accelerate. New technologies can be addictive. Successful companies today are those able to translate wants into needs. For example, one may want a smartphone, and then they'll discover they need a smartphone. And then they'll finally discover they can't live without a smartphone. Furthermore, their smartphone purchased just 2 years ago has suddenly become obsolete because of the introduction of new features in the latest market release. So they need a new smartphone. One can find such marketing trends in other new products in everyday use, like cars. Addiction to new technologies not only exists in affluent nations, but also in the remote villages of developing nations throughout the world. Curiosity and learning new tricks are part of the human condition and not geographically limited. This brings me back to the theme, public universities and change masters in the 21st century. Research opportunities will only increase as we pursue new market potentials for adapting to a green world. Living in this world will require new technologies to adapt to the limitations of Earth's resources to support an expected world population growth by 2 billion more people in the next 30 years. And all the urbanization that goes with it, and all the demand for food that goes with it. This will be a world that will involve not only greater competition, but also more collaboration in order to compete. It will be a world where individual capabilities and productivities will be greatly expanded by information and communication technologies. The solution of these global problems will increasingly depend on international cooperation. When you, the graduates of the University of Macau, earn a degree, it will not only be a passport in pursuing your careers, it will also be a passport to engage the world. You will be able to construct new global networks for research and business collaborations. Not only will you be able to connect face-to-face with anyone in the world at any time with a smartphone, but will have concurrent bimodal real-time language translation to lower communication barriers. These and other technological developments will amplify prospects for continuous learning and personal achievement in the 21st century. Public universities and change masters will be at the forefront of these developments through global education, research, outreach, and the launching of new enterprises. The commencement is an exciting time to experience bright young minds going out into the world to pursue their dreams, but also to do their part in making the world a better place to live. I wish you, the students, and the graduates who will be graduating on Friday and receiving their higher degrees from the University of Macau, every success and good fortune in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Clement. Please please remain on stage. And now is the Q&A session, and you can raise questions regarding to this lecture today.
Probably I can just start to see if we have more questions from our students. But just a very simple question after this very enlightening presentation. Having lived your life in the area of professional life related with technology, and considering the challenges that you presented today to the new graduates, would you consider, if you are a graduate just now, that it would be easier or more difficult to face the future when you graduate or not, taking into consideration the fast change of technology and all those challenges? Thank you very much.
Well, you're taking me back to my graduation. The world wasn't any better then than it is today. We've just come out of World War II. And most of Europe was devastated. Most of the world was devastated. The human loss during World War II was enormous. We had families that were broken up because of the war. It was sort of the start of juvenile democracy to some extent. So we had global issues then. We had serious economic problems. But we also had serious social problems that had to be addressed after the war. We had to reconnect families. Some families never even found their family members. They had to adjust to a new world. The problems today are somewhat different. The world is more interconnected. I think the future is bright for graduates, and especially graduates who have the courage to go out and meet the world on its own terms and to use their education to best advantage. But, as I mentioned, their education will not last them all their life. They have to continuously learn. They have to continuously explore. They have to continuously move forward and look ahead. They have to plan their careers. They have to plan their lives. No one's going to do it for them. So I'm talking to you, the students. But I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. So I'm optimistic. And while you ask the question, I want to thank you for your wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Professor Behmen, it's such a great pleasure to meet you here in Macau, having been sort of in the same field for many years in the United States. It's a truly pleasure to have you here as one of our honorary degree recipients. We congratulate you, and you bring honors to University of Macau.
Well, thank you.
My question to you, when we understand the complexity of the world, the ever-changing knowledge, speed of changes is overwhelming for the 21st century. In your view, as a professor teaching in a major university, what and how do you think students can be better prepared? I'm talking about undergraduate students, not postgraduate students, to handle, to tackle, to face the challenges of the future when they graduate, knowing this is an ever-changing world with a paradigm shift, with the knowledge that's going to be renewed every 5 years. How, what do they prepare themselves to face the future?
Well, first of all, one of the values that a university provides is understanding of basic principles and understanding of ethics and basic philosophy. It also teaches social networking, how to develop social skills, but also how to develop leadership skills, how to be a student leader. And those are all important, being able to communicate, being able to speak, being able to convey your ideas. In an interconnected world, that's very important. Having a second language is very important also. I find in my travels, it's more difficult because one day I'm in Russia, another day I'm in China, another day I'm in France, another day I'm in Mexico, and it's overwhelming to try and learn all those languages. But for me, I can get away with it because I speak English and everyone else speaks English. In fact, when I try to speak in their language, they say, please speak English. But one of the greatest values that a university can teach is our analytical skills, how to analyze, how to be critical, how to evaluate information and determine what's true and what's not true when you're being bamboozled. But the other thing is, and this is even more important, is learning how to learn. It's the learning how to learn that will stand students in good stead for the future because of the imperative now. It's always been imperative to learn continually, but the pace has changed. The need is more urgent now. But one has to be selective. You can't keep up with everything. But you should, I think every student should reserve some of their time in a very busy world to learn about the past, to learn about history, to learn about philosophy, to learn about the origin of ethics and the application of ethics, to read good literature and enjoy good literature, and be amazed at the creativity of composers, of writers, of performers, and what it took for them to achieve that level of achievement. This will keep you humble, and a little bit of humility will go a long way. And sometimes humility will allow you to be better listeners. It's not just communicating, it's also listening, which is a part of communication. So it's that two-way effect that's also important. So that's my answer to your question. Thank you for the question.
Hi, Professor Binez. Nice to see you. And then, as an alumni of the Purdue University, so glad to see that you report the advancement of the science and technologies and the future of the 21st century for us. I have a quick question for you. As being the director of the National Science Foundation, this is the very highest positions in the United States that direct all the science, engineering, technology in the state and also in the world. So being a director there for many years, and you see the change and you have your own philosophy to direct all the advancement in the United States. What is your personal philosophy to direct in this area to advance the United States? And as being the positions as a faculty right now in Purdue University, what do you expect that in the engineering and science and also in the technology area? What do you expect that advancement in education? What do you foresee that to be changed in order to make much better advance in the futures?
I detected about 5 questions. First of all, there are some things that are common in leadership, whether you're in industry, academia, or in government. And so there are leadership principles. I learned most of those principles actually in the Army. I had 27 years of military training, and you're trained to be leaders. You're trained to communicate. You're trained to be disciplined. You're trained to be able to get up at 5:30 in the morning and put in a full day of work. Those are things you learn. But you also find that you're going to find bureaucracy no matter where you go. You're going to find it in academia, you're going to find it in industry, you're going to find it in government. So you can't be daunted by bureaucracy. You have to work with it. And you have to understand how these systems work, and they're systems. And after a while, you take a systematic look at how institutions function. And a university functions much differently than industry. Industry tends to be more hierarchical. Universities tend to be more of a limited partnership. So the structure of these organizations are different. But you have to adapt to the structure. You have to adapt to the way things are. And so that is a partial answer to your question of how do you go into a position like leading the National Science Foundation and be successful? Well, the way I did it was to invert the usual perception of leadership and also authority. And I told all my direct reports, you don't work for me, I work for you. It's my responsibility to create an environment for you that will make you effective in your job. And if you're effective in your job, then I can be more effective in my job. So you invert the pyramid. And that worked quite well. Remind me what the last part of your question was.
What do you foresee the change in the science and educations, science, engineering, and technology educations in the future?
I'll tell you what changed in just the 10 years I was in Washington. When I left Purdue, I noted that in many engineering colleges, including Purdue, across the country, oftentimes a student would spend 4 years studying engineering and not really know what an engineer does, or what engineering is all about. And in those days, the retention rate was not so good. The dropout rate was like 40% after the first year, because people thought they wanted to be an engineer, but first of all, they didn't know what an engineer did, and then they didn't like what they learned in the first year, so they went on and took some other topic. That's not the way it's done today. At Purdue University, as a freshman, incidentally, Purdue is one of the, I think it's the only university that I know about that has a Department of Engineering Education with tenured faculty that do research on engineering education. And it's made a dramatic difference. When engineers come into their freshman year, they're immediately put into a variety of salons where they have to develop their concepts, where they have to develop a designs. They have to build prototypes. They have to test and evaluate their prototypes. And they have to learn that design is not easy. You can make mistakes, but you can learn from your mistakes. And when you build a prototype and you do the testing and evaluation, you find that there are new ways, better ways of doing things. That's activity-based learning. That's learning by doing. And of course they have to take calculus, and of course they have to take English, and of course they have to take other standard engineering courses. But this is a required laboratory course that they also take throughout the freshman year in order to learn what engineering is all about. Our retention rate from our freshman year to our sophomore year in engineering is 93%. It can't be 100% because some people have family problems, they have financial problems, and so they can't get from the freshman year to the sophomore year. But I think what we changed was we made engineering a love affair for the student during the first year. They found it so exciting and so interesting that they wanted to continue doing it. And well, let me tell you that those who stay in engineering from the freshman to the sophomore year, the retention rate to graduation is 95%. So we're able to offer our engineering students the opportunity to graduate in 4 years, not 5 years or not 6 years, 4 years. And if they're interested in their work, and if they're interested in their subject matter, they're going to work hard, they're going to do the work, they're going to succeed, and they're going to graduate. The parents love it, and you don't have to pay the extra money for the 5th year. and their sons and daughters that are out in the workforce are earning a living. And I have to say that it does one other thing. Many of our engineering students also do internships with industry, so they learn how industry works. And if you look at the Fortune 100 companies in the United States, you'll find that many of the executives and many of the members of the boardroom are Purdue graduates. So that's what we're training. We're training leaders, not just for academia, but also leaders in industry. So it's the leadership that we're focusing on. It can be done.
Thank you, Professor Beamans, for giving us an interesting presentation. Well, I just have one question. What do you think is the most important thing that a graduate should have in order to face this new challenging world and to get engaged in the society? Thank you.
I think, first of all, they have to have high dreams. They have to have high expectations. They have to look ahead in the future and ask themselves the question, where do I want to be 5 years from now? Because that 5-year period is critical. And I'm willing to bet anyone in this room that if you dream ahead of where you're going to be in 5 years, chances are you'll underestimate where you'll actually be. But having that goal or having that aim is probably the most important thing that you as a graduate can do.
Hello, Professor. I have one question. As you mentioned that more and more undergraduate students participate in the research that the postgraduate students do. So this phenomenon, if I can say this phenomenon means that a student is become more smarter, or is the reason that it's the accumulate of the technology advance that make the people can tackle the complex problem with the simple principle as usual, just because the technology advancement.
No, you put your finger on it. You're absolutely right. That one thing that enables our faculty to engage undergraduates in research or in projects. I mean, our students, even in the freshman year, but especially in the sophomore year, they build solar cars, they build new transmission systems, they build a whole range of things. And they do that as a student group. I mean, we have student organizations that are in robotics, and as an organization, they come together and they do new advancements and try to bring in more information, more AI into their robotic designs. But what helps that along is that because we've become such an interdisciplinary campus, we have a number of interdisciplinary centers. And these centers can accommodate undergraduate students to work in the center, along with not only one or more faculty members, but also one or more graduate students. And it's a great learning experience. It's another activity-based learning method because they learn about research, they learn about instrumentation, they learn about precision, they learn about how to measure things, how to reduce research findings to writing, which is important. Now, not all of them go on to graduate research, but a number of them, if they have research in the undergraduate years, will decide to go on to graduate research because they want to continue doing research. But that doesn't necessarily mean that when they graduate, they go into a research institute, they go to a university. Many of them will go to industry. But boy, will they have a great resume when it comes to the interview, because they have all these things that they've done, all these organizations they've participated in, and that's what industry is looking for, is that kind of talent.
Thanks for the comment. Now comes to the last question.
Dear Professor Piment, I'm Alvin Rongs from Faculty of Science and Technology. I have one simple question. We know international exchange program maybe is a good way to help our students enhance their performance in internship. So in case our university want to further development our international exchange program, do you have any suggestion to us? Yeah, this is my question. Thank you.
I didn't understand what program it was. It's a national
International exchange program
Exchange
for
program.
the undergraduate of the graduate student. So do you have any suggestion in this way?
Well, yes, but it's more of an observation than a suggestion. I find a lot of studies abroad are more cultural than a study. I mean, but that's important to have a chance to be exposed to other nations, other cultures, other languages is very important for young minds to learn about and understand that the world is a very diverse place to live in, and not everyone thinks the same way as you do. So those are good learning experiences. But my feeling is that instead of going abroad for a week, which is not enough time, or 2 weeks, which is still not enough time, that the time ought to be lengthened, and it ought to be structured in their program in such a way that they can take on a project while they're abroad. They can work under a mentor while they're abroad. They can do an LWID, and everyone asks me, what's an LWID? It stands for look what I did. So they can. The other thing that we require in some of our internships is that after the internship, they have to do at least 1 or 2 credits of independent study in the following semester to write about or do some intellectual activity that's associated with what they observed and what they learned abroad. And that way it sustains it in their mind. It sort of fixes it in their mind. Furthermore, in doing that study, they oftentimes have to refer back to their network or to their mentor or to the students they worked with when they were abroad. And so that's another good way of learning, of teaching them that they ought to keep track of these things as they go forward. So there's much that can be done in these exchange programs and even collaborative research. It's great for a faculty member to go abroad and work in another laboratory through a sabbatical or through a summertime. But it's even more important that they take their students with them occasionally, if they can work it into their budget. And when their students go over, they can have the benefit of not only having their own faculty member as a mentor in what they're doing, but they have the other faculty member as a mentor as well. So it also broadens their experience. So these are modalities. These are different ways of doing things. And I think we have to be open and explore a little bit through joint degrees, joint research opportunities, and getting our students involved in these types of activities that go beyond what they learn in the classroom as part of their education.
Professor Piment, sorry, this is not a question, but I would, this came up from the Honors College. It's not a question, but a remark. First of all, I thank you for such a wonderful talk introducing problems and challenges for our students and future graduates, and also a framework to help them to understand the possible way to deal with these kind of challenges and problems. And one thing that strike a chord when you mentioned that in dealing with these challenges and problems, the very important part is the nurturing the leadership. I think that is exactly what our university's will is also at, and that is the purpose of establishing
the honors college at our university, which actually focus on leadership nurturing. In here, I welcome you to our university, and we also look forward this afternoon, our students at honor college, to have a wonderful talk with you and learn from your wisdom. Thank you again.
There are a lot of ways of coming away from a university with different experiences. One is it's a learning opportunity to learn about the university and learn about the research that's being done at the university. But one of the most satisfying things is to talk to the students. And so I look forward to that opportunity. That's the fun part.
Let's give Professor Bieman once more again for his impressive talk today. And now it comes to the end of the lecture. Thank you all of you for coming.